Hello everybody, how are you guys doing today? Welcome to the Obsidian Twitch channel. My name is Eric Dorbella. I'm the community manager here at Obsidian, and I'm seated with Josh and Bobby Null from the Deadfire team, and we're going to have another Q&A session with you guys. Just like the previous sessions, we're going to read off questions we gathered off Twitter and off the forums, and after we get through those questions, we're going to have time with you guys in chat. So after that, we'll open the floor to you guys when we give the say-so, sorry for stumbling my words, and open it to you guys. So we're just gonna go ahead and start with Josh and Bobby. How you doing, guys?
Going well.
Good. Been busy.
Yep.
I did shave. Thank you for noticing. All right.
Bobby, we
Greetings.
don't fight.
What? Oh, okay, nice. That's good to know. All right, gonna dive right into these cues here. Would you consider a pause button for voice dialogues? Because there was a lot of clash between spoken and narrative text. To be honest, it's not something I think we've considered before. I don't know how hard it would be. But yeah, I think we would consider it, but it's not something we've heard a lot of demand for.
Not really, no.
Is the Saints' War and or Widewind's death somehow tied to the Aethys resurrection? I mean, in a general sense, absolutely. Specifically, next question.
It's a little spoilery,
yeah.
I think.
Will we see changes in the game difficulty menu? Same options, difficulty levels as in Pillars 1.
It's very similar.
Yeah, it's very similar. There are a few things we're looking at. One thing I will say that's not related to difficulty level specifically. So it's been a lot of fun seeing how people have found their own ways to go through things like Triple Crown Solo and the Ultimate and things like that. I know that
Which is crazy, by the way. Sorry to interrupt, but the Ultimate is insane. I've watched a few of you guys that have done it. Impressed. I can't do it, so good job.
Yeah, the Ultimate is pretty gnarly. Some people have a lot of angst about those being in Steam achievements and things like that. We do have some ideas about pulling those out and basically recognizing them as, like, basically having Obsidian recognize those achievements as opposed to making them Steam achievements.
Atari 2600 style.
Yeah, like we want to do something cool for people that actually hit those goals without it driving people crazy who absolutely need to get 100% achievements on stuff like that.
Right.
So we may tweak some of the difficulty stuff. One thing that is new is that scaling is something that you can opt into or out of. And you will be able to toggle whether you can see things like enemy levels and things like that.
And quest levels as well.
And quest levels. Some people want the immersion of not seeing any of that stuff, so you'll be able to ignore it. Other people really want to know that information, so you will be able to toggle that if you want to.
If you want to get whacked by the bear, leave that off.
Yes. With health being replaced by wounds, will endurance still regenerate outside of combat? An advantage of removing regen is that it'd be possible for relatively easy battles to leave a mark, allowing expensive hit point potions to be used out of combat to replenish endurance would provide a useful money sink. Yeah, it's going to regenerate outside of combat. The thing is, there are other classes and things that can give healing too. So unless you were traveling without a priest or a paladin or something like that, you'd still be able to get that healing back. We're trying out our new resting system just to see how it feels. We're probably going to tweak it as time goes on. There's nothing set in stone for it. We're trying to look at the best way to support the type of flow that our quests typically support. And yeah, and I don't know if there's much else to say about that.
No, I think trying, like, again, Josh says we're trying new things, and we are. So we have some ideas of what we think will be good, but that stuff is open to iteration, like any good new piece of content should be. So we're not married to it. We're pretty confident in it, but we'll change things as need be.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I mean, like, the health and endurance system was something that I really liked.
So did I.
Some people really like it, other people really did not, so we're trying something new on that.
Yeah.
Regarding deflection, endurance, and accuracy, now that multi-classing has been introduced, will characters have a class-based stat progression like in D&D? It would suit Deadfire, in my opinion. We're still discussing exactly how the stat progression is going to work for those multi-classed characters, so that's an ongoing conversation that the system design team is having. Will we have the chance to play as other godlike characters, for example, a Helian bird godlike? We are not introducing any new godlike, but Dimitri Berman is remodeling and retexturing the godlike. If you saw the fire godlike in the trailer, it's pretty incredible. I don't know if you saw Eric's little periscope thing of the death godlike. They look insane. So the godlike that we have are getting overhauled, but we're not going to add new ones.
Yeah, well, we're not adding any new playable.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. So, should I say anything more about that?
If you want to, I kind of opened it up a little bit.
So a lot of people have talked about the companion that. So Lindsay Laney did an illustration of the companions for the relationship update, where they're all standing around a table, and one of the guys there is an Amawa who's standing there, who we haven't talked about. He is Amawa, but he's also godlike.
Yep. What kind? I don't know. Figure it out.
Yep. Are we going to see more about the Paladin Orders in Deadfire? Yes, you will see more about the Paladin Orders. We've already done a few quests that involve pretty cool Paladins from different orders. We try to lean more heavily on Paladin stuff for role-playing and stuff like that as well. So yes, you're going to see more stuff on those guys.
Yeah, we definitely added some history for some of that stuff going on too, which is kind of delving back into that, it's going to be cool.
There's neat definition for that stuff.
Yeah.
Will those of us with multiple saves be able to choose which one to import into the new game? Yep, you're going to be able to pick whichever one you want. And of course, again, just to reiterate, because I know this is a concern for people, if you don't have an endgame save for Pillars of Eternity, you'll be able to set story states when you start Deadfire.
Right.
So it's okay. Really importing the game is for people that really just want to stay true to the game that they started and just live with the consequences no matter what. If you just want to try things out, you're going to be able to set up all those states yourself. Will we be able to customize the Watcher's multi-class combination titles? Not currently. If you think our names suck a whole lot, then maybe we'll consider that. By the way, I will say again that a lot of people have had cool feedback and ideas for multi-class names. Thank you for contributing all those, and please keep it up, because the reason we have them is because people like them.
Right.
Like, people like having cool titles. So I'm not married to any of them in particular. Maybe Warden. I like Warden a lot. Because I played a Warden in 4th edition.
Swashbuckler for
nice,
me,
yeah.
That's especially with
Fighter Rogue seems to appropriate.
Yeah, sure.
So, not sure if it was already the case in Pillars, but does scouting confer a bonus to detecting hidden objects in Deadfire? It no longer does. So now, whether you're scouting or not scouting, your chance to detect stuff is based off your perception. It does not gain a bonus when you are scouting. Scouting is just for being stealthy.
How much have you talked about skills? Like the amount of new skills that we have?
Not a lot. Bobby likes skills.
Yeah, well, we without getting too in-depth in it, but we do have a lot more skills. If you remember from the last game, I think we're at, 5 or 6 in the last game?
Yeah, 5 or, maybe. I think it was just 5.
Yeah, I think it was 5. And that was something that during PoE 1, towards the end, and when we were doing patches, Josh and I sat down and we mapped out how do we make more skills in this game. And just for that game, we were running up on budget time limits and whatnot. So we definitely opened it up for this one. I think we're at 11 or 12 or something like that now?
Oh, dude, it's way more.
Is it more than that?
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, it's a fair amount, right?
It's
So you have a lot more customization of your characters and making them the thing that's nice about skills is having, in my mind, not just gameplay ramifications for them, but also it helps you define your character, and it helps make the role-playing aspect of it better, which is always a good thing. So.
Definitely, and that's what a lot of the choices was like. Does this make, for a skill, does it fit the world, and can we fit it into quest, but also does it make me feel more like a specific type of character?
Right.
How will the Paladin Priest multi-class work in relation to gods and orders? Bleakwalker / Priest of Aethys? That is the one case where we are likely to restrict combinations, is between Paladins and Priests. So a specific combination like that would not work. We're trying to restrict that stuff as little as possible because we want people to have as many choices as they can. The thing that can get bad is if you multi-class into something where they have two diametrically opposed dispositions that are favored, you're kind of screwing your character up, and it also doesn't make any sense. Although the making any sense thing is less of a concern, you can roleplay your character however you want. So, you know how people say, I can roleplay my character as honest and deceptive.
Right.
You can. That's on you.
In other words, crazy. So.
Yeah, you can roleplay your character as benevolent and cruel. For us, it's about avoiding the sort of mechanical snares where it's these guys are diametrically opposed, and I just made an impossible character. Anywho, what makes one Paladin order different talent or spell rise from another order, or is it just differences in role playing? Different Paladin orders, they're basically like our subclasses for Paladins. They have different either talents or abilities based on the order that they come from. Some of those are, like in Pillars 1, they're based off of the base abilities. So for example, Pallegina coming back has Viola Vittorio and Wrath of the Five Sons, but other Paladin orders may have those adjusted. Some people didn't think the Bleakwalker stuff was particularly powerful, so that stuff will get tweaked. But yeah, they will have different variations on those abilities based on the order that they're from.
A lot of paladin questions.
I think people like
pallies.
paladins. You
People
like
like-
paladins.
Yeah, they're not bad. I do dig them.
He likes paladins. He also, you know what Bobby likes more than any other class?
What was it?
Wizards.
I do.
Bobby loves wizards.
I do. Wizards are my favorite. PoE wizards, and here's the thing, I like PoE wizards too.
Even Bobby,
Even I like PoE
who
wizards.
loves 3-5.
I had a fun time playing on hard in PoE with an all wizard party. It was pretty. To be fair, I didn't finish the game, so but what I did play was pretty fun.
Bobby also designed the console hot
I did
stuff,
I did.
which is very cool. Yeah. Since factions are a focus in the game, can you tell us more about them beyond Valians, natives, and pirates? Well, I mean, I could go on forever, really, about them. I think Carrie, actually, what I would say is, if you look at our last update, I think Carrie went more in depth with a lot of the faction stuff. Yeah, I would just be rehashing a lot of that stuff. But, I mean, the general idea is that there is this substance, there's Adra, that Adra grows around the world, but it grows in the Deadfire in the form of luminous Adra in some places. And luminous Adra was not previously believed to have any special value, it was just sort of a curiosity. And once it became valuable, once Animancers figured out how to make this little, cool things out of it, that caused a lot of foreign powers to become interested in trying to take control of it. So there is a struggle between those colonial powers, the natives, and the pirates, and then other minor factions that are in the world as well. So that's the broad overview, but I think Carrie went over that stuff in more depth in the last stream.
I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, that there's some information on sub-factions on Fulvano's Voyage, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Fulvano's Voyage also talks a little bit about a few. What ones does he talk about?
Well, I don't know. I don't remember what we've revealed so far, so I don't know if I want to make them wait to reveal it on Fulvano's Voyage.
That's a good point.
We probably should.
Yeah. Is it so fun? Is it so fighter will be the best choice to multi-class due to a starter deflection, accuracy stats, plus constant recovery? Like I said, we're reworking the starting stats and how they progress. So we're trying to avoid something where it's like, yep, clearly this is the only class to take at first level and everything else is stupid. So we're going to be reworking that stuff. Can there be mutiny on your ship? Currently, we don't have like a crew system or anything like that. We have companions on the ship.
Well, companions and your adventurers that you can make and the sidekicks, like that's pretty much going to be your crew.
Yeah.
So if companions can get mad at you and leave, then technically we have mutiny, right?
Yeah,
they're part of your crew.
Yeah, we don't have mutiny as a systemic thing.
No,
it would be more like an individual companion gets mad at you for choices that you make and takes off.
Yeah, and there may be some content that feels mutinous. We'll see.
Will Deadfire's reactivity include examples that subvert player expectations of a choice, such as Fallout's vault location? Yes, I think it's always good. I mean, one of the things that Bobby really emphasizes in a lot of quest design is to turn the player's expectation. So like, I'm going to go and handle this. Wait, this is not exactly what I thought. But on the back end of that, you should have some consequences that you expect, and then you should have some consequences that are unintended or possibly go against what you were trying to achieve.
Yeah, that's basically our basic quest and task design philosophy. Like we don't always hit it, but on the vast majority of our quests, and it doesn't. Sometimes it's a full twist in the story. Sometimes it's a turn in the story. Other times it's just you thought you were just going to go collect this thing, and there's a cool scripted interaction as part of it. Like always keeping the player finding something new and interesting, whether it's a new creature, a new scripted interaction, or actually turning what the player thought he was going to be doing from start to finish on the quest is pretty much our core philosophy on almost all of our quests. Very rarely do you have a go kill 5 things and bring them back to me, and you literally go to the place that the NPC told you to, kill 5 things, and then come back and say I did it. Like that's not really what we're into doing. So
yeah. Excuse me. Are faction alliances all or nothing, as in Pillars of Eternity? Will we be locked into a single faction after some point? Yes, they are all or nothing, but the point at which that happens is further along in the progression of quests. So something we got a lot of feedback on for Pillars 1 is that you're like, hey, can you go get my breastplate? Sure. You're locked in with these guys now, and you're sworn enemies of their end.
That was totally my fault. If anybody doesn't like that was totally me being way too cautious. Not way too cautious. We had a lot to do on the first game. We had a lot of quests. We had new systems to make. We had new areas. We had lots of things that we needed to do. And the faction stuff was just something that Josh and I both wanted to do more with. But I really put the brakes on that because it gets really complicated. What I will tell you for this game is I've been racking my brain and working on the weekends and working with designers, doing crazy designer stuff that's way more complicated than it probably should be. Fergus will hate me for saying this, but it's going to be awesome. So
yeah, it is going to be really great. How did you decide upon which returning characters to bring back from Pillars 1? We looked at companions. Actually, what I did is I went into a room with Carrie and Eric and I said, hey guys, what companions do you think would make sense to actually come with you to Pillars 2? And what don't make any sense at all, either because they don't have a hook or it just doesn't seem appropriate given how their quest ends. Because of Adair's religious beliefs, his ties to Aethys make him a very easy sort of choice to come along. Aloth seemed to be another good choice due to his ongoing Lead and Key interests, whether he is sort of, well, I don't want to spoil things, but he has ongoing Lead and Key interests. And Pallegina because of the heavy involvement of the Valiant Trading Company. So those three, I actually, when I went in there, I did not expect them to say Pallegina. I thought they were just going to say maybe Adair, Aloth, and there was someone else I thought, maybe Maneha or someone like that, but yeah, they said that they felt Pallegina was more appropriate. So that is pretty, and I didn't want to have more than 3 companions coming back. Yep. We do want some continuity, like, hey, here's these people that you know, they're back, but then we obviously want to keep expanding the cast with new people.
Right.
Will there be a sentient weapon, sidekick, actual soulbound weapon? I will keep asking until my dreams are utterly crushed.
It's a question.
Why don't you ask Adam Brennicky
Yep.
tomorrow?
I'm just gonna. Well, I think what we can say about that is somewhere on our Fig campaign there are question marks. If you look at those question marks, you might answer that question yourself, or we might answer that question for you in the coming day or two.
Yes. That kind of spoiled it right there. But will the beta be a couple of areas again, or something that runs the gamut of all levels since there's more to test? So what we'll probably do with if we have something for beta testing, what we're probably going to do is we're probably going to have one area that's a side area like Deerford, where it's a little hub with some stuff for you to do.
Yep.
However, what I would like to do, and I'm not promising anything, but what I would like to do is have something that is like a little battle royale area for people to really just kind of go crazy and like test out a lot of combat mechanics and parties of different levels. We got some new scripting features that allow us to sort of like level up and level down characters and things like that.
Yeah.
So we'd like to have a little test bed just for kind of going nuts with a lot of stuff. So that's something that I would like to do, but the main focus of something like that would probably be something like Deerford, because we got a huge amount of good feedback on that stuff.
Yeah.
Question for Bobby.
What do you got?
Will there be visual exoticism in this game? Things that will make difference with the first game. In the trailer, we saw palm trees and more foliage, for example.
Yes, there will be visual exoticism in this game. We're in a much more exotic location, I think. It's a lot less Western European. While we both love that stuff, we wanted to kind of kick it into a new area in the game and show this world from a different side. So there will be some exotic locations. There will be some locations that are not super exotic, but for the most part, yeah, there'll be quite a few areas that will make your eyes pop a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things we're trying to do, especially in areas like Nekataka, is show a blend of cultures. So you get the Valian colonial stuff that's there, which is mixed in with all of the palm trees and stuff like that.
Yeah, we've only shown a few of the actual renders of Nekataka. Obviously, in the video that we showed, it's a pretty big city. If you could sure count the districts by watching the video. There's some cool locations in there just in the city itself that look pretty exotic. And that's not even counting dungeons and other things we're planning on doing. So yeah.
So, question for me. Much has been said about multi-classes. Do you think that a 19-1 will be viable with your system, meaning 19 levels in one class and one in another? I have no doubt it'll be viable. I think that's one of the tricky sort of edge cases where we need to figure out. It's a very delicate balance to find like something that feels completely worthless or incredibly overpowered. So that's one of the sort of common sort of strats for building a character that we're going to be paying a lot of attention to, is if 19-1 is awful or insanely good or something in between.
You still get the name though, right?
You still will get the name.
I don't know. That might be worth it right there for the role players out there, kind of like me.
With your system and 5 party members, 5 roles well defined, will we go to a total advantage to take a pure class, non-multi-classed? I don't think so.
I actually, that whole question went through one ear, not the other.
Yeah, so the idea is like, so we have, since we only have 5 party members,
Right.
Will it, and there are like only 4 or 5 roles to fill in a party,
Right.
is it more advantageous to just single class everybody
Oh, I see what you're
than
saying.
multi-class? I think the thing is, like, the appeal of multi-classing is finding cool synergies with the different classes. So as long as you can do that, I think you're probably going to be able to find a place for those.
Yeah, I also think that like our game, like even though we have the different roles, those roles could, the extent in which you do that role on a per encounter basis doesn't always have to be the same thing, right? So like again, I was talking about playing a group with 5 wizards. That played completely different, super overpowered in places and super weak in other places, but that's what made it exciting. So at the end of the day, you don't even need, you can get away with 2 of the 5 roles, 3 of the 5 roles. That's kind of the fun thing, is to play with crazy parties, in my opinion.
Yeah, mine too. On the boards, there have been many doubts and speculations about sidekicks and how they differ from regular companions. Any chance we'll hear more on this distinction? How fleshed out will they be compared to, say, the characters in Pillars 1? Will they interject into our conversations or comment on our travels? Will they engage in banter with the rest of our companions? Will we be able to talk to them? Okay, so there's a lot of confusion about this. The easiest way I can describe them is, remember BG2, remember Animan and Jaheira and characters like that had like a ton of stuff? And then you remember characters like Cern and Mazzy, who are cool characters, but they don't actually have a whole lot to say. And people still remember those characters. Sidekicks are more in the category of characters like Cern and Mazzy. Not in terms of those characters specifically, but in terms of the quantity of stuff that they will say. So they don't have personal quests to go on. They can pipe up about things, but they're much less chatty than a full-fledged companion.
Yeah, I think another thing that hasn't really been brought up, more from a narrative perspective, not just an actual like node count and the amount of work, is companions, much like the player, but a good character in a lot of narrative works has an arc, right? Where they start as one thing and the world changes them, their experiences change them, and a lot of times will turn into something else later on down the line. And that's interesting and takes a lot of nodes, like Josh is talking about, to accomplish, right? Mm-hmm. The idea with the sidekicks is they don't necessarily need to have an arc, but they can still be. There's a lot of characters that don't have an arc in various forms of fiction that people love, whether it's in movies or television or someone like Minsk. I mean, Minsk really doesn't have a big arc that I remember.
No, he can get a new witch like as his.
Sure, yeah, he has.
But that's not Jaheira.
It's also not really an arc, right? He hasn't really changed. He's literally the same.
Yes.
Butt kicking guy, whatever. His attitude pretty much stays the same. So that's kind of the other thought that we're thinking there too, is that people will hopefully love the sidekicks. They don't have to have a big, deep story arc. So. Yeah,
and I will say, like, because I just sat down with the narrative designers today so we could talk over planning for companions. The working schedule time for a writer, just a writer, to write a companion is 6 work weeks. It takes 6 weeks of a narrative designer's time to write a companion. That doesn't include their quest implementation or any of that stuff.
It's a lot of work.
That's why we want to draw this distinction between like what a full real companion is and what a sidekick is. We want sidekicks to be colorful and cool, but we don't we want to have more options for you guys. But we also don't want to overpromise something that we don't think we can deliver on.
Right.
How are you guys approaching the random encounters in Uncharted Islands? Will each of these be generic encounters and locations in the style of Storm of Zahir's world map spawns? Or are you planning on making each encounter and location unique and in the former's case, one time only?
So I worked on Storm of Zahir, so I can answer this. Storm of Zahir was much more generic. I think it was much more, generic maybe isn't the term to use, but much more classic in the way that random encounters work. There's a list of encounters. These things can spawn, and they may change, 5 here, 6 here, between 5 and 7, that kind of thing. But for the most part, they're the same types of encounters. What we're looking at doing, looking at doing a mix of a lot of things, and we're still prototyping out a fair amount of it. The big idea here is that any of the ones that are repeatable will not always be the same in the terms of the creatures that you're fighting. So that can take the form of leaders, named leaders within them, ones that drop different types of equipment, that type of thing. But moreover, we're more than likely, the vast majority of these will be one-off type of encounters that are a little more, you fight it once or you talk to it once, or you do a thing once, you make some some choice, and then you move on. So will there be some rehashed ones that can happen multiple times? Yes, but even within those, we want things to feel different. Like think of them kind of like the bounties. The bounties, when you're fighting a named person that has a named piece of loot, that it would have a unique thing that he can drop, and or a piece of a unique thing that can drop. So keeping even the ones that get rehashed a little fresher is kind of the idea.
Yep. Will the deaths of companions in this game potentially trigger interactions or attitude changes among surviving party members based on the nature of the relationship between them? Yes, that's one of the things we've talked about specifically doing for the companion relationship system. One of the things that Carrie and I have done for our preliminary writing of voice sets is to include variant lines based on their attitude towards a certain person. Like if we kind of know they're probably going to like this person or dislike this person, we have variants in for that. And obviously having more long-term reactivity if someone that they really care about or really hate winds up dying, there will be reactions to that. Will there be opportunities to use class abilities, spells, powers, and so forth during dialogues, or will such opportunities remain limited to combat and scripted interactions?
In the most case, we can. It's up to the designer, actually. If they want to throw those in there into a dialogue where it makes sense, great. I think it makes more sense in the scripted interactions because we have a UI that we've now built for that. And there's a lot. If you think about the amount of classes and spells and abilities that we have in the game, it starts getting so crazy to try to do that stuff just in the scripted interactions themselves. What if I did this thing? Well, why can't I do these other 10 things? So we want to be careful about not putting too much of that in dialogue. If it makes sense, great. Some pickpocketing or some things like that. There'll be some of that stuff. But I think the vast majority will be more in scripted interactions.
Yep. Multiclassing will result in a class power level that is roughly class level plus, and here's a formula, plus the character level minus the class level, if I recall correctly. For spellcasting classes, will this affect spell slots and spell level, so that a 10 fighter, 10 wizard has the same amount of spells as an 18 wizard, or will it just affect caster level? It affects both things. So you will wind up being more like, I can't remember exactly, but you'll be more like, if you're an 18th level wizard and you have like a 9/9 fighter wizard, your available like power is about 75% what the 18th level wizard actually has, even though it seems like you're half and half. So that's the way that the math actually breaks down. It applies to your powers no matter what their source is, whether it's arcane or discipline or guile or any of that stuff. That's how that stuff works. There was a thread on the forums about how evil actions netted more permanent attribute bonuses than good actions for quests. Will there be an attempt to balance this out, not taking into account power gaming for attribute bonuses? No, you're greedy, so you get more material rewards. That's how it goes. But if you are nasty and bad, there will probably be more reactivity to you being nasty and bad. Yeah. But especially in a case where like no one's around to see you do it, like, yep, you were nasty and you got a cool thing out of it because you're evil.
But can you live with yourself after doing it?
Can you?
I don't know.
Apparently, yeah.
Not if you're a paladin. I guess it depends on if you're a bleak walker. I guess you can.
Can and will the performance gain of Pillars of Eternity 2 be backported to Pillars 1 when? That would require basically like reporting the engine. It'd almost be like making an enhanced edition version, like the Baldur's Gate enhanced edition and all that stuff. I think it's possible. I think it'd be a lot of work.
Adam and I just talked about it over lunch. I'm not saying we're doing it, but it is something we've talked about and we're thinking, there's always a possibility. So.
It is. I mean, one of the things that's crazy is recently I went into a room to look at Pillars, and I've been looking at Pillars 2 so much, and I was like, you.
Yeah, I know. And I think that's where it came from. We were literally walking by looking at Pillars 1, after staring at Pillars 2 every day as we were going to lunch. So again, don't take this that there's any plans right now, but it is something that we've at least talked about. Who knows? Maybe.
Yeah. If the sidekick goal, If the sidekick goal is not met, can you release your quest editor instead? Good news. I think it's already been hit, hasn't it?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. Also, our quest editor. So we have a set of tools, the Obsidian tool suite, that's for writing dialogue, quests. It's now our game data editor for setting up all of our equipment and spells and stuff like that. It's been in development basically since we were working on Aliens, meaning 2006.
Yeah, well, different versions of different tools have been
definitely.
in various iterations since Aliens. So,
it's a good tool. Don't know if we're going to release that. Pillars 1 had one of the best class balance of all single-player CRPG. Thanks. I think a lot of people would disagree with that. Each class felt different and useful. how do you want to keep the balance with 11 classes and 3 subclasses each and 55 multi-classes with a varying amount of levels from each base class? Well, the high-level idea of this is that we're trying to look at, the tricky thing for us is going to be looking at the way that things synergize together, how sort of unintended things come together and cause nightmares. But the general idea is that the overall power level is being sort of, the system just does that. Like, it sort of keeps you in this nice, healthy range. What we're going to be keeping our eye out for is edge cases and weird synergies of things that you couldn't replicate with 2 characters having the same powers. Whether that means like barbarians getting a boatload of focus from Carnage or things like that. Just seeing how that plays out and figuring out how to address it. So that's the basic idea. Can you tell us more about all kinds of skills and what you plan to do with them?
Skills, I think we already talked about that, didn't we?
Yeah. What are a few of the skills that we... Oh, you know what?
Pickpocket. I mean, we've talked about it a little bit.
Sleight of hand.
Did we talk about the reverse pickpocket yet?
No.
So
We're ready.
We are going to do some reverse pickpocketing, so if you want to plant explosives on people and blow them up, you'll be able to do that. So.
There will be explosives also,
yeah.
Which you can make with alchemy.
Yes, alchemy is one of our new skills.
Actually, it's not that you can make them with alchemy, but it allows you to use them better, I believe.
Right.
What kind of technological and scientific advancements can we look forward to in the times of Deadfire? Well, it's only been 5 years past, but one of the things that we will be highlighting more is more naval technology, more advancement in firearms. Something that we didn't actually talk about is Seraphim, one of the companions. He actually has like a little, he has a hand mortar, which should be very fun. So he can shoot like little AoE like grenades out of his hand mortar. So we have a few more things advancing in terms of naval and firearm technology. Also, animancers are becoming more, well, in Pillars 1, there's a lot of either underhanded or incompetent animancers.
And there's a lot of animancer angst as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of like dark animancy.
We hate these guys.
There are many more animancers doing cool and good things in the Deadfire.
Yeah, not all animancers are Frankenstein.
Yes. What is the reasoning behind penetration coefficient values of 30, 100, and 130? As players, we like to have meaningful choices, but with such big difference, making sure we always have the required penetration is a no-brainer. For example, adding this extra decision layer doesn't seem to make the system deeper at all. By the way, are these penetration coefficients additive or multiplicative? So, I mean, you don't know going into an encounter necessarily what all those, what all those penetration... I guess the thing is, like, I think you might be overthinking it. Like, if you look at it from the perspective of Pillars of Eternity, I mean, creatures still had all sorts of different, armor ratings on their armor, and some of those would be very high, some would be very low. Some of them, they'd be immune. And you have a lot of different options for how you want to deal with that. You can raise your own pen, you can lower their armor, you can switch the weapon that you're using, or you can switch the target that you're attacking. So there's a lot of different ways that you can actually address that, and that's going to be true in Pillars 2 as well. The reason to go with those harsh values is to make it a less murky system and something that's much more distinctive. Whether it actually winds up being 30, 100, and 130, or 50, 100, 150, or 50, 100, 125, I don't know what the actual number at the end is going to be. The point is
it will
that
change.
It will probably change, but the point is that there's a very strong difference between matching pen and being below pen. Whereas in Pillars sometimes, like, if you were just above the minimum penetration, it was still pretty bad up to a certain point, and then it kind of just, it scaled kind of oddly, and that's what we're trying to avoid. And also, especially against very big attacks, like, hey, the dragon breathes on the party, and it does 100 billion points of damage. Well, the way the DR system works, it doesn't handle those large numbers very well.
Right.
Which is why, for example, when I did my mod for Fallout New Vegas, I added in damage reduction as a percentage, so it felt more valuable against those big attacks. So that's really the reason, is to make those distinctions cleaner, but those numbers are probably going to change. If Empower adds a flat +3 to power level, won't its relative effect become much weaker in the late game? I mean, it's always +3 levels. It's always whatever you're adding on top of anything else.
Yeah, and our levels can scale past what our max level is.
Yeah, they can scale past the end. So just because you have maxed out your power levels, that can go above that as well. And that's it for all of our, I think that's it for everything, yeah.
All right, thank you everyone who submitted those awesome questions. We're now going to open the floor to you guys in chat. We're going to put the chat in slow mode so you don't overwhelm us too much. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and talk to you guys. So please ask away as things get really crazy.
I can't see anything.
Yeah, I've got to... Why is this? Yeah, haha!
There you go. That's the button you're looking for.
All right, let's roll.
What in the world?
Yeah, that went fast.
There we go.
Everybody had them ready to go.
Will we be able to use the sentence "Unleash the Kraken" somewhere in the game since boats and stuff? Do you think you're going to get a Kraken? Seems unlikely. However, you might see one. The Watcher ship seems great, and I can't wait to take my adventurers to the high seas. But I was wondering if you guys are considering creating a harbor or base stronghold-like location. Maybe it can incorporate a few buildings like a shipyard, tavern, etc. This could also be a great stretch goal. Thanks, damn you, for making me so hyped for this game.
So I'll answer that one. We actually at one point had talked about doing both. We actually had it on the schedule, and it was a little bit too much to do. And obviously, it was splitting the difference. And this was actually Josh's call, but I completely agreed with it that we were splitting too much of the things between the two objects, between the stronghold and the ship, and we wanted to focus on the ship. The ship is what you spend your time on for vast amounts of time in this game, and we wanted to put as much resources into having your ship be the cool thing that you can upgrade and make awesome.
It also is hard to incorporate the stronghold into the narrative, just as it sort of was in Pillars 1. And the more we talked about it, the more it just seemed like it just makes more sense for us to have the ship be the focus and not do traditional strongholds.
Yeah, we're doing more open world gameplay on the Overland map that we've just revealed, right? So like staying, building a home and sitting down and like that just kind of went against exactly what this game's supposed to be about, is going out and using your ship to explore exotic locations.
What improvements are coming to the disposition system beyond Deceptive becoming shady? I had two major issues with it in Pillars 1. NPCs you just met, who apparently had no idea who you are, had instant insight into your personality. 2, scores inflated quickly, and by the second half of the game, depending on how much side content you did, NPCs commented on dispositions you rarely displayed. How about ranking the values relative to each other when they're beyond a minimum threshold? I think the first issue is that's up to the writer. Like, the writer should choose when a character knows or does not know about your dispositions. So if there's someone that lives in a big urban area that you've been running around in for a whole bunch, they're likely to know about you. If there's someone off in the middle of nowhere, they probably should not know about you. So that's really on the writers. So we're going to try to do a better job of having them pay attention to that. As far as the scaling, that's all just kind of being sensitive to that stuff and seeing what makes sense to test for given the stage of the game that you're at. So later in the game, especially like when we know it's late in the game, we should generally be checking for higher personality thresholds anyway, because you're more likely to have built up those reps over time. Earlier in the game, we're checking for lower ones because you've barely had any time to build up your reps. So those things I think will be improvements, but they're mostly content-based, not systemic. Do Pillars of Eternity achievements affect Barrett's Blessing or any part of a start? Do Pillars of Eternity achievements affect Barrett's Blessing or any part of a start in Pillars 2? Thinking about an attempt at an ultimate achievements. Achievements themselves do not. Like Steam achievements as a piece of data is not something that we track. We're tracking like game states. So we wouldn't track something like the ultimate, but we would track something like how did Adair's quest end at the end of the game?
Right.
So yeah, don't try to do like the ultimate, like we're going to do reactivity for it. We're not, other than saying you're cool. Can you change the ship's name, and what would be the customizable options for the ship flag? Only colors or forms? Also, you will be able to change your ship name.
Correct.
And then I can't remember what the customization options are for the flags and stuff.
You can get different flags. I believe you can steal different flags. There's a fair amount of stuff you can do with flags. So we don't have it like a UI where you can pick a color and add this emblem but we are talking about some possibilities of doing other things like that. But for the most part, right now they are static things that you can choose from a collection of these things, whether it's you're purchasing them or you're stealing them or doing whatever.
I like when RPG monsters have various on-hit effects, such as life drain, stun, disease, etc., because it enhances the tactical complexity of combat encounters. I liked it in Pillars of Eternity as well, so I'm curious if there will be more of these two-stage attacks in Deadfire, perhaps even some new unique attacks effects in unique status effects inherent to monsters' natural weapons and attacks.
Yes, there's quite a few of that, quite a bit of that stuff going on. In Pillars of Eternity 1, one of the things that's different about, I think Ferguson said at some point that like our team's about the same size. That's actually not true. Like we have a few more team members on this game, particularly on the system design end. So there's been a lot more time to develop a lot of the creature stuff. I think it's 3 system designers now.
Yeah.
Additional system.
And I'm not even a system designer technically anymore.
He's technically not. So, the creature should do a lot more unique things. Existing creatures that you fought in the first game are going to get a little pass and a little love on what they do. So it's not exactly fighting the same things, but they should still feel like the same type of creatures. We're not going to completely rewrite the book on those. So yeah, there should be a lot of new things that creatures do for you.
Question: will the steward be more involved narratively in Deadfire? Yes. So the steward is present with you almost from the very beginning. She kind of gets messed up at the beginning of the game.
As does everything else attached with that keep.
With Cadnua, but she does come with you. She still recognizes you as the steward as the Lord of Cadnua, even though Cadnua does not exist. So yes, and she is always present with you wherever you go, on your ship at least. So yeah, she is more tightly integrated into the storyline.
Where were we at?
Will the steward's head be mountable on a wall in the captain's quarter when we reach 3.5 million? She's actually going to be a bust on a pillar. I'm not going to say the end of that. But like, she's going to be a bust on a pillar on your ship. So yeah, she's there and you can go and chat with her whenever you need advice or just to ask her questions. Will there be Steam Workshop support? Any tools for players to do cool custom scenarios as well? Any thoughts on that kind of topic in general? The one thing I've said a lot is that our file formats have changed a great deal. So even if we don't wind up releasing official tools, being able to edit stuff is much, much easier. Making your own level, that's spicy. It's very, 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 very difficult. And so I don't see us doing anything like that. There are other things that might be within the realm of people doing modding. As far as Steam Workshop itself, that's probably more of a question for Adam Brennicky.
I was about to say the same thing. I'll do one here. Baldur's Gate 1 had the golden pantaloons that seemed innocuous until the sequel revealed their true value. Does PoE have a similar item hiding in plain sight, and is it a Zarup spear? Only the Zarup spear from the very beginning of PoE 1, but we won't reveal what that thing does until the climactic end of the trilogy. I'm just kidding. Anyways, we are actually. I've had some discussions, and I actually haven't even talked to Josh about this. This is going to seem like something he doesn't even know about. I've had some discussions with the other system designers about some secret things that weapons do, and I guess after this podcast, I'll go talk to Josh about it and make sure he's okay with it. But yeah, there's some cool things we can do with some weapons. I think that will be some secret-y things that aren't involved in quests, and it's just if you find this thing, and not everybody will find these things. I don't know how many of them we'll end up doing, but there will be some of that. Yes.
Question: with the new travel mechanics, will the party be able to stop anywhere on the map or island, and the game would generate a location for the party like in Fallout 1? You can always stop on your ship anywhere you're sailing around.
Yep.
You can't just stop anywhere that you're walking around though to create a map. And obviously, when you stop at sea, you're always on your ship. Part of that is to avoid not that you would necessarily lose quest items because we firmly keep those in your inventory.
Right.
But it's just to avoid, weird things happen with temporary locations like that sometimes. So when they're in a random encounter or a special encounter that we've made, we can fairly tightly control those. When it's something that just kind of pops in wherever, it becomes hard to clean those up and keep them good.
Yeah, we're going to have... It is something we've talked about. I know it was cool in Fallout. To be honest with you, as cool as it was in Fallout, after you did it a few times, I've just replayed Fallout recently just to make sure I'm not talking from 15 whatever years of nostalgia. They don't do much for you, and the maps tend to look exactly the same. So I fear that I like that idea, and I actually thought it was cool in Fallout, but if we did that, I do think that in this day and age, people would go, it would be like, every one of these maps looks exactly the same. So then we would need to take we don't want them to look the same, and we would end up spending a bunch of time to flesh that out. So if we're talking about a bigger, giant open world contiguous game, I think that art time is worth it, but not really for what we're doing, I don't think.
Question for Bobby and Josh. I'm curious about the tabletop RPG. Have you guys figured out dice mechanics yet? D20, D100, fudge dice, custom dice, like the WFRP WFRP 3E or Star Wars Edge of the Empire or something else? Also, do either of you have any P&P system you absolutely love or hate? Yeah, dice mechanics, what I'm working with right now is 2d10 with explosions on doubles. Yeah, I'm taking inspiration from a lot of different stuff. It's not honestly going to be super D&D like. I think you, the person watching this right now, can probably make a conversion for 3E or 3.5 or 4E or 5E yourself. I believe in you. I legitimately, sincerely believe in your ability to remove warlocks and sorcerers and put in psychic warriors, and then
it wouldn't be very hard.
Like you can do it. I believe in you. So the tabletop system is in very early stages. I'm going to be playtesting it with folks here. But yeah, it's fun. It's going to be cool.
I'll be playing the tabletop system. To be honest with you, there was a conversation. So the fact that you guys are getting a tabletop system is all this guy. They came to me and were like, "Hey, you want to help design the tabletop system?" Like, I have zero time for that. The reason why we're doing it is because Josh has taken this on himself to do it. So I'm sure he will hit me up about these things, and he's got some early ideas about what's going on, and we'll play test it. But I have not really been working on that. So
yeah. But what about your favorite games, Bobby?
Favorite games? I like D&D 3.5. I mean, that's just kind of my. There's a lot of RPG systems I like. D&D 3.5 for me is one of those things that it's I'm talking from a tabletop perspective. I like that it's got a lot of flexibility, and one of the things I like about tabletop RPGs is because you don't have a lot of time to actually play most of the time. You're trying to getting everybody together and playing for 4 hours is always the hardest part. So in between those sessions, particularly as a player, a DM gets to go, or a GM gets to go and design quests and all the other stuff that's going on. But as a player, looking through, and it's one of the things that might not be one of the strengths of the system, but it's also one of its strengths, the amount of content in all those goofy splat books and all the different crazy ways that you can make things and break things. Like, it's fun to read that stuff to me and play, in between sessions, which a lot of times are a week or two apart. So I still like D&D 3.5 quite a bit. So
yeah, I still play D&D whenever. By the way, I'm going to call out my coworkers. There are how many 5e games running right now?
There's a bunch. I don't even know. And I didn't get invited to a single one.
Neither did I.
What the hell?
Neither did I. Neither of us were invited to play in the 5e games. But I've been playing D&D since I was like 10 years old. So I still like playing D&D. What I've been playing, although I stopped playing recently so I could work more on my own systems at home, Ars Magica, I played in a campaign for, God, was that like 2 years, 2.5 years?
What was that melee one that we were talking about, that you were talking about, that I was trying to get you to run?
Which one?
I don't remember. It was some, like a hardcore, older, medieval kind of.
Oh no, not Harnmaster.
Yeah. Was that the one? I wanted to try that. That sounded cool. I had never even heard of it.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone would actually run Harnmaster. I think we're going to try to run it.
You should run Harnmaster.
See how insane it is. I like Ars Magica. There are any system I play, just because I'm a system designer, I pick things apart in it. But I like playing Ars Magica. I like a lot of stuff Burning Wheel. I like a lot of the ideas in Torchbearer, although our players found it really painful to play through. I've been looking at a system recently called Gumshoe and also Bubblegum Shoe, which are pretty neat because they're investigation-oriented role-playing game systems, and that's something that a lot of RPGs mechanically don't do very well. So there's a lot of neat games out there. Even going back, like old Call of Cthulhu stuff, old Stormbringer. I actually like a lot of different games, and I'm not super hung up on like, I can only play this. I like playing a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, I haven't played anything recent other than 3.5. Like, I used to, all of my experimental stuff was from years and years ago, and I there's a lot of things I liked about a lot of them, but 3.5 found that kind of that sweet spot where it still has its issues, but at least from a fantasy perspective, that's kind of what I've been playing. So.
Let's see here. Will there be new Ranger companions in the game? For the player character, we're not adding any new creatures. If you've seen Maya, our new companion, she does have a new animal companion, which is a bird. That is cool. Are you going to be adding PayPal to the payment methods? I would really love to be able to pledge. Yes, that is coming
post. I think that is post the campaign, yeah.
Post campaign. So we're still going to be collecting stuff after the end of the campaign with PayPal. Question, without going into spoilers, is there a lore reason as to why Aethys will attack a Priest of Aethys player character, and will there be an option to return him as a god? Well, some of that stuff would be spoilery,
yeah.
But like, yes, there's a reason why when he comes back, like, everybody around gets real messed up. If you don't make a stretch goal, is there a chance of it showing up in it? I'm sorry. I should have brought some water. If you don't make a stretch goal, is there a chance of it showing up in a DLC? Yes, that's always a possibility. There's a lot of stuff where we go like, cool idea, no time. Let's save it for a DLC.
Yeah, we just had some really, well, I won't. We've had plenty of good ideas over lunch just the last couple of weeks that we've talked about. So,
will Deadfire feature full-fledged romances or just simplified romances? Will there be sea creatures that you can fight like the Kraken, Loch Ness, etc.? So I don't know what the difference between full-fledged and simplified is, but like our relationships are supposed to be like big, cool relationships. So whatever form they take, whether they're like, you know, super strong camaraderie or like helping someone deal with some gnarly stuff and it's just like being a good friend, or a romance, like they're going to be full-fledged, cool things that are really well thought out and realized. That's what we're trying to do. And then the second one was about sea monsters. Sea monsters is something that is sort of like the thing for the Deadfire, so you will be seeing nasty critters.
Yep. Are ships 2D or 3D elements in the scene? Are they static or moving on the water? The ships are 3D elements in the scene. They are not 2D elements. It's one of the few places and scenes that we are doing essentially full 3D, even though we still, for the most part, have the camera locked as if it were in an isometric 2D game. So Unity has problems with moving nav, so currently the ships are a little static, but there's some magic to get them to move a little bit. I've noticed in the video, like the video doesn't show, we've got some things moving a little bit better. I had seen some comments about the sails weren't quite moving. There's still some polish to be done with it, but we're pretty happy with the results thus far. So
yeah, I was surprised that the sails do move actually.
Yeah, there was some.
They weren't in that video for some reason.
Just the edges seem to be moving. They weren't flapping in the wind like they're supposed to. So
yeah,
that's a bug.
Sails do move a little bit. They're not going to do full crazy cloth physics, but they do move.
Yeah.
They move more than they were in the video.
Yeah, they were.
So even you guys don't know what the full world of Aora is like yet? I mean, it's not been fully fleshed out yet, right? Yeah, we don't really, I mean, we continue to define outside of, you know, what we're actually designing for, but part of it is that, like, this is Obsidian's world. I am directing these 2 games. There may be more games after this.
Yep.
I may not direct them, and I want to leave space for other people and other teams to have cool ideas and things to do. And also it can sometimes be counterproductive. Like I've given the example of, I could define the last, 20 emperors of Edir.
Sure.
But like, how should I? Or should I, focus on what we're doing in the game right now? So we define it as much as is necessary to make the world feel larger. But we try to save a lot of the details and a lot of the bigger cultures for later development. Like in the Deadfire, we knew like, yep, there are Amaua here, there are sea monsters, volcanoes, it's really long, Nasitak is at the south end, there are pirates, and then everything else we defined when we actually sat down to make this game.
Well, it's one of those things that you got to think about too. Like if you use something like D&D as an example, right? Early D&D was not super defined, and then over the years it gets more and more defined. The settings get more and more defined to the point where they have to start rehashing some of the same content in the later books or whatnot. But going like to get that level of detail, like you want to do that when you have something to work on, when you have getting into the level itself and somebody needing to figure out all the little nuances of why this culture does this or does this thing. That's not a good use of your time unless designers need that information to actually make content out of it. So,
will I be able to change race and class when importing from Pillars 1? You're probably going to be able to change your class. You may be able to change your race. The class mechanics have changed pretty significantly, so we're probably, and you're back to level 1 anyway. Race seems a little more fundamental to your character. We may or may not. I don't have a super strong feeling on that. I don't think it would be hard to do. It's kind of whatever seems to feel best.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, if we went and did that, then there would, I know the next question would be, would there be a lore reason that makes sense? And yes, we would make sure that there is.
Sure.
So.
Can you scroll down? In the third Twitch stream Q&A, Carrie answered the question on the differences between Watchers and Ciphers by saying Watchers can see the histories of souls and they can specifically see past lives, and ciphers cannot, presumably. But it's a plot point in Pillars 1 that the Dunreeve Rose ciphers check the soul lineages of the Crucible Knights. What gives? Just confusion among writers.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, it's just an error. I mean, that was the reason why people were asking that question, is like, it doesn't seem clear which is which. And that's something at the beginning of Pillars 2 I said, okay, let's let's sit down and talk about exactly what people can and can't do so that moving forward we don't, basically confuse things like that. Question, in terms of engine completion, how long do you believe it will take for you to feel the Obsidian tool set for this game will be complete in comparison to Pillars of Eternity, which is basically in its infancy early on? It's hard to say. So it's much more robust now than it was at its equivalent point in Pillars 1.
It'll never be done, though.
It'll never be done. Like, there's always a list of features that we want.
Until we abandon it.
Yes.
I guarantee you, tools programmers will always want to do something different, or designers and or other developers will want something more to do. So it'll always be in flux until someday we abandon it and go like we're doing something else. If we ever do that, then until then, work in progress.
Yep. Keep going on down.
Fun with flags.
Keep on going down. Keep on going down. Will the game run with about the same performance as Pillars 1? As I noticed, the game ran well in the beginning, but my FPS took a drastic turn later in the game. I noticed the game was running slowly in the White March. I believe we've been running the game on a min-spec system.
Yeah, well, according to Adam, it should be, yes.
According to Adam.
That should be the case. So if it's not, please send all of your complaints to Adam Brennicky. But no, moving a lot of the data into the game data editor, that was one of the reasons why a lot of that work was done. So theoretically, yes, that is the case. But as in with all titles, we'll work on that and flesh it out as best we can as we go. So we think that will be the case, yeah.
Will any choices made during the White March or with the Archmages have consequences in Deadfire? Yes.
Yep. Super long answer there.
Yeah. Question, I really liked how Tyranny handled the in-game cinematics. Lots of awesomeness going around. I remember being constantly amazed by the narrative. Does Pillars of Eternity 2 use the same graphics engine? It's using Unity 5, so the baseline is the same, but we've added a lot of additional improvements on top of that.
Yeah, so especially the lighting is one of the things that's really changing things for us. So.
Question, what happens in terms of taking talents, spells, etc. when you take an additional class very late in the game? Do you take lots of them retroactively? Nope. You take the one that you get at that level. Like, you get things per level, and although the power of that one thing that you take will be much higher than it would have been if you just took it, basically if you didn't have the boost from all the additional levels, you don't just get a backlog of a bunch of additional stuff. Will there be an environmental effect similar to Divinity Original Sin? Like if there's a poison liquid pool, you can get rid of it by burning it with a fire scroll spells, fire grenade, etc.
So one of the things we've both played the game. I've not finished it, but I did like the environmental stuff in that game. I think it was really cool. We will be doing some additional things in combat. We are not going to make a wide sweeping system that handles everything you could think of that you would do. Part of that's because we're making a 2D game, and we have a lot of other things in our game is so story heavy that we do have to kind of balance what we're doing. But no, there will be some destructible things. There will be some. I don't know if we've talked about the slogging. But we did show we showed it at one point where like slogging through certain types of whether it's water or sand or whatever can slow you down. So there's definitely going to be some more reactivity in combat from the environment. Will it be as much as and being able to move every object like the aforementioned game? Then no, we're not going to go that far.
We are going to have some keyword interaction also though in spells. So for example, like if you have a flame shield up and someone casts overbearing wave at you, that will actually cancel the fire effect. It won't hurt the person, but it will make the fire effect actually go away because water and fire will cancel each other.
Right.
So this is a good one. Regarding attacks, are the 4 attack outcomes, miss, graze, hit, crit, coming back, and will their success chance be more transparent during combat? Pillars of Eternity 1 only showed hit chance, and the others' calculations kind of hidden. I found them on the Wikia. Can we get a pie chart with a percentage of every outcome? Actually, I think that's kind of a cool idea. The graze as a general thing, most attacks don't graze now. There are some attacks that graze and some spells that graze, and that's like a special property of them is that they do have a graze range. As far as, so they're all coming back, but graze is much less frequent. And the with regard to like the pie chart type thing, I think it's a cool idea. I don't know how readable that would be given like sort of our combat floats and stuff like that.
Might be tough.
Might be tough, but we are going to try to do a better job of communicating things in general, combat-wise in Pillars 2.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time we have for today. So thank you very much for stopping by, hanging out, and asking some awesome questions. Thank you, Josh and Bobby, for taking time out of your day.
Thank you.
To hang out with the fans and talk with the people. We are now have 48 hours left in the FIG campaign. So thank you.
Cruising.
Thank you everyone who has backed.
3,427,000.
We couldn't do it without you guys, so thank you very much. Also, to plug in the Black Owl Bastards, I am a member of the Black Owl Bastards on the forums, and we are crowdfunding to get the Black Owl Bastards pirate crew into the game. So if you guys like to contribute to our own forums crowdfunding to get the Black Owl Bastards in, go ahead and visit the forum and contribute. So thank you guys very much, and we hope you guys have a wonderful evening/morning. Take it easy.
See ya.